So in this video, I'm going to go through the assessment center and give you a game plan or a blueprint that you can follow in order to help you pass the assessment center and hopefully get the graduate scheme that you want to get. So what we're going to be covering in this lesson, we're going to start off by talking about what an assessment center is and give you an introduction to it. I'm going to talk about the possible tasks that can come up on the assessment center because there's quite a variety of different things that they can make you do in the assessment center. So I'm going to go through all of them. I'm also going to talk about some preparation techniques, what it is that you need to do before you go into the assessment center, how to prepare for it. We'll talk about some best practices during the assessment center. I'm going to cover some basic things that you should know. You might already know these things, but I just want to cover this in case you're brand new to assessment centers. I'm also going to talk about some advanced best practices as well to do during the assessment center. These are more advanced things that you want to make note of, be careful of, and keep in your mind while you're in the assessment center. We'll talk about some skills that you want to demonstrate in the assessment center because essentially the assessment center is marking you on certain skills and a certain skill set. And if you don't show that skill set, well, you're not going to be able to progress. So we'll talk about which skills you need to keep in mind and which skills you need to use for which type of task that can come up. And then we'll talk about post-assessment center strategies, stuff that you can do after you've finished your assessment center. So let's start off with the basics. What is an assessment center? So it's basically a half day or a full day event where you do a bunch of assessed activities and tasks. It's designed to put you in real life scenarios, such as working within a team, presenting to higher ups, and creating reports. So it's a very interactive session. Again, it can be a full day or a half day, depending on how your graduate scheme wants to do things. And it's designed to see how you work with others and how you work with information, they want to see you in your flesh, right? They've already tested you with online psychometric tests at this point. They've probably taken you through an interview at this point as well. And this is to see how you interact with things and people. The assessors will be given an ideal candidate and they will rate your performance with how close you are to that ideal candidate. So the way they mark this is they have an ideal candidate in their mind. So the company will come up with certain attributes of how a person should be, the person that they're looking for. And those attributes will be on a list or something like that. They'll give it to the assessors. And they want to see how much of a fit you are with that ideal person. So basically, are you exactly like the ideal candidate that they're looking for? Are you a little bit far away? Are you kind of there and thereabouts? So that is how they judge you. It's not necessarily you against another person, but when they look at all the scores of everybody and how ideal they are, they'll obviously want to pick the ones that are the most ideal and closest to the most closest to the ideal avatar that they have in mind. It is the most important part of the graduate hiring process. So it is a very, very important part of your graduate hiring process. So just keep that in mind. Don't take it lightly. Be switched on. Make sure that you are ready for it and you're prepared for it. It can be virtual or physical. So expenses are usually paid if it's physical. They might call you to a center. They might pay for your train tickets, your hotel. It might be in a different city. So just be prepared for that and just make sure that you get your logistics sorted for that. Most of the times it is virtual after COVID. You know, they've made them all virtual, but there is still physical ones as well. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so let's talk about some possible tasks that can come up in the assessment center. The assessment center is made up of a bunch of tasks, basically. That's all it is. They want to see how you perform in those different activities, and they are assessing you and your actions in those activities. So these are the activities you can expect to come up. Team working tasks, that's group discussions, group debates, team versus another team, discussions, and then a presentation. A group task is definitely going to be part of your assessment center. It's the cornerstone, the bread and butter of every assessment center. They want to see your team working skills in this. So you could be in a group discussion, you could be debating something, you could be building a Lego bridge and you're versing another team. I've had that before. you could be put in a discussion and then a presentation exercise, so where you and four other people have to discuss some ideas and then come up with one idea between the all of you and then present that to the assessor and present why you have all agreed on that idea. So you'll have some discussion in there, you'll have a debate in there, you'll want to put your point across, somebody else will want to put their point across. So it's a team working exercise, and it could be against your team members or it could be with your team members. And that all depends on what company it is, what kind of assessment center it is, and all that research should be done for that particular graduate scheme so you know what kind of group assessment it's going to be. But more often than not, they don't give you too much information on that. It's like an ad hoc basis, so you just go in and they will tell you and brief you at that moment in time because they want to see how you act without preparation. That's the whole point of them seeing your natural instincts in these scenarios. Another task that might come up is the presentation task. So this is to prepare a PowerPoint on a topic. You then present whatever it is about that said topic. You'll have some question and answer sections at the back end of that presentation. So you might have 5 or 10 minutes where the assessor will ask you questions or the audience will ask you questions related to your presentation. And these questions might not be about the topic of your presentation, but more about how you prepared that presentation. What are the things that you did to research and around those kind of activities that you did to prepare the presentation. But yes, you may get questions on the actual topic as well. So, you know, it's all out there for you to practice. You might get a case study exercise. So this is where you're basically given information to read. You have to make a report or show your findings and present your recommendation. And this is usually done in a timed manner. So they'll give you lots of information. It will be lots. It doesn't have to be loads, but it might be very dense information where you have to read through it quickly and then come up with a solution. It might be information and then you have to come up with a recommendation or you have to put it in an email and summarize it. It could be any of that. Psychometric tests. So they might get you to do some psychometric tests such as numerical, verbal, situation judgment tests, verbal reasoning, deductive reasoning, inductive reasoning. They might get you to do those tests while you're there as well. And they could get you to do an interview as well. This could be a technical interview because most likely by this point you will have done an online interview or a pre-recorded interview, but they could just have another interview just to have a general chat, just to see what you are like. They might do a technical interview like I've written there, just to see your technical side of things. And obviously for that, you would need to prepare depending on the type of graduate scheme it is, what industry that graduate scheme is in. This is just an image or, well, just a pictogram that I want to show you when it comes to the importance and difficulty of each stage. So we've got the application form here, and these bars represent how hard or how important that stage is. And you can see here that the application form is obviously important, but it's not very difficult. The online tests are, you know, quite difficult. Then the interview stage is even more difficult than the online tests because you know you really have to prepare for that. You really have to be confident, and it can be a make or break situation. And the assessment center is by far, you can see, the most difficult part of this whole process. You've got the technical interview here as well, and that's, in my opinion, is not as hard because if you're going for a certain scheme and there's a technical interview in there, you probably have done a degree related to that, so you kind of already know about it, so you should be okay in the technical interview. For example, if you're going for an IT based role, they'll probably ask you something about IT, and you know, if you're going for an IT based role, you kind of already have an idea of what IT is and the ins and outs of it. Or if you're going for an accounting role or an engineering role, they'll ask you something engineering related, and you've probably done that in university. But the assessment center is by far the most difficult part of the process, and I'm not telling you this to make you scared or anything. I'm just telling you to present to you the importance of the assessment center and how you really need to be switched on with this. I've gone through many assessment centers in my graduate hiring process, and it's always definitely the hardest bit. And it's also the most make or break part of the process. So a lot of people do drop out from the assessment center, and the people that do get to the assessment center, the good thing to remember is that if you do get to the EAC, you are in the top percentile. So that's a really, really good thing to pat yourself on the back. A lot of people don't make it to the assessment center, but then remember, when you get to the assessment center, the job's still not done. You need to pass that assessment center, and you can do so if you have the right information and the right tools to get that done. Okay, let's now talk about how to prepare for the assessment center. So this is quite an important part, so let's go through that. Research, research, research. The best way to prepare is to research the company specifically and the ethics and values. So whatever company is running that assessment center, you want to make sure you spend a good whole hour or two in a research session figuring out everything you can about the company. What are their ethics and values? These are very corporate-y things. I personally can vouch that 90% of you and me, 90% of people do not give a crap about these things, but as candidates, we have to act like we do. And the only way you can do that is by researching the company, go on their website, have a look at their motto, have a look at the values and ethics. What do they stand for? For example, if a company is investing heavily in their training, then that is something that you can actually bring up as part of your interviews and your assessment centers, and the assessors will really like that. So you need to basically research the company, and then also look at everything in the information pack that they provide you with. So when you go into an assessment center, or you're invited to one, you will be given lots of information, a lot of packs and stuff like that to read through, what you can expect on the day. Read through that again and again, make sure you take down some notes so you are best prepared for that. The most in-depth information, I can give you all the information here from a general standpoint in these videos and even in my course as well, but the most specific information will always come from the graduate scheme itself directly. So make sure you read through that, study it, and see what it is that they're going to be assessing. What activity are they going to get you to do if they've mentioned that? What is the presentation going to be based on, right? So have all of this information, read through it. Don't just go into the assessment center without thinking too much, because you're not going to be able to fluke it. I'll tell you that right now. You will not be able to do that. So make sure you spend that time to do the research. Study the job advert to pick out what they are looking for. Quite self-explanatory. Read the job advert. What I like to do is have a Notion document where I have all of the schemes, and within each of those modules, I've got all of the information there for that particular scheme. So just that way you stay organized. So I would recommend you do the same thing as well. Have a Notion document or a Word document if you want, where you've got all of the information pasted, including the job advert for that scheme, so you know what you're getting yourself into. Make a Notion document to record vital information for the day. Stay organized. Again, just reiterating that fact that I've just mentioned. Understand and practice the different types of tasks that can come up. So practice the group task if you can, the presentation task, the interview or the case studies, job simulations. In my course, I offer lots of guidance, in-depth guidance on this. You don't have to get my course, but I'm just saying that in there I go a little bit more in depth where to get this practice from. But for now, for this video, I would just say, for interviews, try and practice with your friends and family. With group tasks, you can watch some videos online, see how they are conducted, and see some past examples of what could come up. You will usually be given the presentation topic in advance. So if you want to prepare for the presentation, which you obviously do, you'll usually be given the topic in advance. Very rarely you'll be told on the day that this is the topic that you need to create the presentation on. And what they'll do is they'll give you that in the morning, or they'll give you that at the start of the task, and then give you some time to prepare for that. But in my experience, most schemes give you that at least a week beforehand, so that you can create your material for that. Plan your logistics. Make sure that your dress code is on point. Get your trains, hotels sorted out. Make sure that is all sorted out in time. Dress code needs to be professional, so you're not in university anymore, so make sure it is professional. And if it's online or it's a remote assessment center, then make sure that you've got your technology sorted out. So your webcam, your laptop, your library room booked if you want to book a library room in the university so that you can sit there all day and just do it in peace. Make sure you book that in advance. So here are some basic things that you need to keep in mind when you're going through the assessment center. So these are some basic things, right? You might already know these, but I want to cover these anyway in case you're brand new to assessment centers. So the first things first, you must actively display your skills and attributes to the assessor and engage with your other candidates. Staying quiet will not do you any favors, and think of driving lessons. So when you're in the assessment center, the only way the assessor can assess you is when you're actually showing what you're like. So if you're going to stay quiet and in the corner, not contribute, the assessor can't mark you because they're not seeing anything. They're not seeing what you have to contribute. They can't see your actions. They can't see what you're saying. Well, they can't hear what you're saying. So you need to display your skills. And I've written think of driving lesson here because if you've not gone through a driving lesson, for those of you who have, you'll know what I'm talking about. When you're doing a driving lesson, one of the key things as part of passing a driving lesson is to check your mirrors, right? They say all the time, check your mirrors when you're pulling out of a junction or something. So the thing that they tell you to do is look into your mirrors. So you've got the mirror above you, you've got the left and right mirrors on the right and left wing of the car. And what they always advise is when you're looking at these mirrors, make sure that you exaggerate that movement, because you could just keep your head still and look at those mirrors, but the assessor who is assessing your driving is not going to be able to see that you've checked him, because he can't look, or he or she can't look at your eyes. But when you move your head like this, when you actually exaggerate the movement, they can see that in the corner of the eye and they can mark it down that yes, they've checked the mirrors. Even if you can check the mirrors without moving your head, moving your head will exaggerate the movement and it will show actively that you did that skill basically, or you did that thing. So that is the same thing that you need to do in the assessment center. Even if you think that people can read your facial expressions or understand what you're saying, no, they can't. The assessor can only assess you on what you say and do. So you need to say and do those things that are in your mind and that you want to be shown to the assessor. Okay? Be and act confident even though you'll be nervous. Everybody is nervous. Everyone going through the assessment center, no matter how confident they act, they are all nervous. Just keep that in your mind. So you're not the only nervous person there. But the key is to fake that you are confident. Be and act like you are confident, and things will start to flow a lot more easier. Dress professionally. It's not uni anymore, so make sure that you dress accordingly. Obviously, if you are going into the office, dress as though you would go into the office. Make sure that you're wearing something formal. Be polite and friendly with everyone, but remember your game plan and focus your brain power for the tasks. So there might be times in between your tasks where you go into the breakout room or something, and you can interact with the candidates. And it's good to be polite and friendly. That's great, but just remember, don't get too carried away and don't start, losing your train of thought, because you need to keep your mind focused on your game plan and your tasks. Okay, so always keep that in your mind. That is the most important thing. Interact with the other candidates if you want, but even if you don't, that's fine. But make sure in the actual tasks that you're interacting with the candidates, and make sure that you are working on your game plan and you're not getting carried away with talking and just wasting time and yapping with other people, because that's not what you're there for. You're there to win, and the only way to win is to have you've got limited brain power, right? You've got limited brain points. You don't want to be depleting those brain points talking about football or something random like that, just with other people, which is fine, but make sure that you limit that. Focus on what you're there for. Be on time. Trust me, it's not a good look if you're walking in late. It used to happen all the time. I personally was never late for my assessment centers, but there was always people that had missed their trains and stuff like that. Just get there on time. Just be there earlier. You can sit around in a cafe nearby or something like that. It's always nice to be earlier rather than too late, because then you will be like, you'll stick out like a sore thumb. You really will. And I can't personally say whether it actually affects your performance. I'm guessing it does, because it just doesn't look professional. If you can't get there on time, it's just not a good look. So just don't go there. Just be on time. Okay, here are some advanced things to keep in mind during the assessment center. So don't talk over others, but be punchy and concise. So when you're in these activities, when you're talking to other people inside and outside the group task, remember, don't talk over other people. It's not good to do that, even though a lot of people do think it is, and a lot of other people might want to talk over you, but you shouldn't talk over other people. make sure you let them get their point across. But when you make your point, you need to be punchy and concise. So this isn't just a little quick tip. This is quite a broad tip, and it takes a little bit of time to practice this, and it will come with time the more assessment centers you do. Being punchy and concise isn't everybody's forte. It wasn't mine, right? I always go off in tangents and I don't really make my point land sometimes. But that is one of the things that you do need to be careful of. When you want to make a point, make it concise, make it punchy, let it have an impact on the other people in the team. Don't talk over the other people as well. Include others into the conversation in and outside of the group task. So this is another really good trick that you can do is when you're in a group task, if somebody is shy, not making many points or not getting the chance to speak, what you could do is if you make your point and you make a nice, concise, punchy point, then you can bring that person in and say, Adam, I'm interested to know what you think of the idea that I've just discussed. It's a great way to bring other people into the conversation, and it's actually a really good, you can get a really good marks for that because that's something that the assessors are looking for as well. In the time tasks, spend a minute or two at least to plan out what to focus on. Most of the time tasks will rush you, and you need to decide the areas that you want to prioritize. So this is things like when you're doing the case study exercise or you're doing a job simulation, they'll might say, for example, in the past, I've had an example where there's a big case study, there's a big newsletter, right? And we need to read that newsletter. We've got 15 minutes to read that newsletter, and then we have 10 minutes to write a report. Or basically, they've not given us the time. They've just said, you've got half an hour to do this exercise. You've got this newsletter, and you need to come up with a report of your findings and basically summarize that whole newsletter. And the newsletter is like 5 pages long. Got lots of information and data and charts and stuff like that in. And we need to create a summary email, just one email that goes through everything and covers everything. You've got 20 minutes to do that. So you're under the cosh straight away. So you're not going to be able to do everything in that 20 minutes. You might miss some things out. You might not make your points clear in the email that you're going to write because you're so busy reading those 5 or 6 pages of dense information. So what you need to do is you need to spend a minute just to plan, okay, I'm going to spend 10 minutes on reading all of the information, going to make some notes, and then I'm going to spend 10 minutes drafting up the email and then presenting that. So just spend a minute to do that, and spending that minute goes a long way in helping you stay organized. So just as an example, the case study job simulation exercise, skim the information and execute the task accordingly, like I said in the first point as well. For the presentation exercise, be clear and logical with your arguments. Prepare some likely questions from the audience. So be clear and concise with what is your point with the presentation. What are you trying to get across? Make sure that's very clear. Try not to have filler stuff in there. Try not to have too many like silly animations and images and stuff. Make sure that you stay on point, but don't make it too boring as well. Don't have loads of text on the screen. Make sure that you have adequate text on the screen, also have some graphics, and then you also do the talking as well. Make sure that you're getting straight to the point. Make sure you stay within the time limit, and also prepare some questions that you think you might get from the audience or the assessor, because you will get some questions, and come up with some possible answers to those as well. Now, moving on to the next section, let's talk about some skills that you must demonstrate when you're in the assessment center. So these are mostly soft skills. So I'm going to group them into the different tasks that can come up with what skills they're looking for in those tasks, so that you have an idea of how to go about them. Because the thing is, if you know what skills they're looking for, you can act in a certain way where you're expressing those skills or you're demonstrating those skills. When you don't know the skills they're looking for, just making a Lego bridge or something just seems very pointless. But when you know what skills they're looking for, then you can exaggerate those skills and make sure that they are on show so the assessor can actually mark you. And that is the whole game with the assessment centers. It's not about making the Lego bridge. Just to give you a very funny story, one of the assessment centers that I went to was making a Lego bridge, and our team actually failed. So it was me and 2 other guys, and then there was another group of 3 that we were competing against. They made a really good Lego bridge. Ours fell down like as soon as we started presenting it. So we failed, and they said, okay, the winner is the other guys. So we lost and we failed, but I ended up getting that job. I ended up getting onto that graduate scheme. Now I declined that graduate scheme because it wasn't as high paid and stuff, but I actually got through and I passed that assessment center. Why? Because even though I failed, I was showing those leadership skills and those skills that they were looking for in that group exercise. So very, very important that you know what it is they're looking for, and then you can exaggerate those things and make sure that they're on display. So remember, it's not about winning each task, it's about the soft skills that you use to carry out the task. Very, very important. You may not win at the task, you may miss out information, you may not present half the things that you were supposed to present, but if you have done most of the skills, most of the soft skills that they're looking for, you will be absolutely fine. And yes, winning the task and hitting the objective is part of the marking scheme, but even if you don't, it's not the end of the world. So don't give up. Don't just lose the plot thinking, oh well, I've failed the task, so I'm going to lose this. No, keep making sure, keep on demonstrating those skills as much as you can. So when it comes to the group task, they're looking for team working skills. They want to see how you communicate. They want to see how you deal with objections, and they want to see how confident you are. So those are the main skills that they're looking for in a group task. In the presentation task, they were looking for your researching skills. They want to see how you communicate again, once again, how you present yourself. They want to see your time management skills, and they want to see your confidence. So time management, because they'll give you 10 or 15 minutes to present the presentation and then 5 minutes to answer the questions or something. So they want to see if you can stick to that time limit. The job simulation or case study tasks, here they're wanting to see your comprehension skills, so how you comprehend the information, how you retain the info, your communication skills, again, how you do written communication or verbal communication, your time management skills, and your logical thinking skills. How do you logically come up with a solution, right? If there's information in this case study or this job simulation, all these emails coming through, how do you logically prioritize them and stuff like that? So now we're moving on to the post-assessment center strategies. Here are some things that you can do once you've gone through your assessment center. So these are mostly all the things that you're going to need for your assessment center. Make sure that you're showing these skills. These are some things that you can do after the assessment center. So I always ask for feedback. Once you've gone through the assessment centers, you've said bye-bye, everything, all of that, you go home, you want to make sure you email them straight away and ask for feedback. A lot of the assessment centers do provide feedback. Some might provide generic feedback, some might give you specific feedback. You want to try and get your specific feedback if you can, and then of course work on your strengths and weaknesses. So if there's some strengths, make sure that you hone down on them. If you've got some weaknesses, make sure you work on those weaknesses. Practice, get better at those weaknesses and bring them up. Not passing the assessment center is not the end of the world. Always use the assessment center as the experience for the next assessment center. So if you have failed, that's fine. Most people do fail when they're starting out in assessment centers. You're just getting used to the game, so don't be too hard on yourself. This is why it's important to do lots of assessment centers so that you get used to how to play the game. Use it as an experience. Okay, that experience is vital, absolutely vital, and use it as experience to go on to your next assessment centers. Reflect on your performance, make a reflection log. So I talk about two things in my course as well. I talk about a win log and a reflection log. And a reflection log has basically all the information that I'm giving you. So everything that you did, everything that you can kind of remember, just jot it down just in case, because most likely you're not going to go on your first assessment center and then get the job. That's very, very highly unlikely. So you are going to be going on a few assessment centers, and it's just good to have this stuff written down somewhere, what you've done previously, so that you don't have to keep it in your mind. If you want more in-depth information, you can check out my Premium Graduate X course in the description below to boost your chances of getting on to an assessment center and passing that and getting onto a high-paying graduate scheme. I also give you some bonuses to help you, some tools to really fast-track your progress. So you can check that in the description below. But that's up to you. If you don't want it, that's absolutely fine as well. Thank you for watching this video. I hope it was helpful. And with that being said, I'll see you in the next video. Good luck with your assessment center. And if you have any questions, drop them in the comment section below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.